Hello everybody, and I'm back with another video, and this one took really long. Like, I'm not kidding. This was supposed to come out 4 weeks ago, but it didn't. And excruciating as it seems, this game took really long period of time to get reviewed or at least get properly structured for a video. But everything is done, everything is well structured, and here I am sitting down trying to give my very best impressions of Persona 4 Arena and Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. Now, keep in mind, in this video, I will be talking about Persona 4 Arena, the original one, but I will not be showing any footage of it, because I don't have it. I will be showing all the footage of Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, which is not only the Super Turbo version of the first Arena game, but it's also a direct sequel. Now, I do want to emphasize on one part, or at least one aspect, and that is the original Persona 4 Arena was created as a sequel, direct sequel, to Persona 4. Arena Ultimax followed up the original story of Persona 4 Arena and added more into it. Now, if you are somebody who is interested in playing the Arena Ultimax again, then I have good news for you that it is available on modern platforms, and modern hardware. So yeah, you can get into it and really experience it. I think it's one of the most genre-defining 2D sprite-based fighting games. With all of that being said, let's kind of get into what is the backstory behind it, because it's just really interesting. So to understand Persona 4 Arena's genesis, we have to understand the genesis of Persona franchise. Now, Persona is part of the Shin Megami Tensei games, and Shin Megami Tensei games are games that are published by Sega, but they're developed by Atlus. Persona games, on the other hand, are published by Atlus, but at the same time, developed by Atlus as well. The Persona games take place in the same universe as the Shin Megami Tensei games, and at the same time, they don't. I mean, it's connected and it's not connected at the same time. It's just so weird. At the moment, I am playing the first Persona game on my PSP, so yeah, I have a really long way to go, and yeah, I didn't want it to wait 50 years to get to Arena games and say like, hey guys, so finally I've been playing the games for 50 years and I'm here. So let's get into it. To understand, the Persona 3 and Persona 4 were the most popular games in the Persona franchise, of course, before Persona 5 came along. When your game is super popular, you want to milk it as much as you want. So what better way to do it than to find Arc System Works, a developer who is very well renowned for some of their amazing fighting game franchises, but at the same time, they have worked with other companies and made fighting game versions of their non-fighting game video games. Thus, Atlus and Arc System Works joined forces, shook hands, and decided to make one of the most genre-defining fighting games to this day, whose ripples, whose shockwaves can still be felt in the gaming community, and it's still really renowned and rejoiced by a lot of fighting game fans to be just one of the most amazing fighting games to come out. A fighting game you just couldn't expect to just like happen out of nowhere, but it did. I mean, the moment you start this game, and the moment like the soundtrack starts, the opening starts, the menu sequence, I mean, the presentation is a very solid 10 out of 10, and I'm just so in love with the music. Like, I have a lot of soundtracks in my Spotify. The player select screen, the transition between matches, all of this is just so amazing, so fantastic. The versus screens are my personal favorite. Like, it's just so intense. The announcer has so much energy. The characters are given so much justice.
A debut concert for the new me!
Sorry for making you wait! Round 1, fight!
Now, since this is Persona 4 Arena Frank games, it does have most of Persona 4's cast. The original Persona 4 Arena had 3 characters, where Arena Ultimax upgrades it to 3 more characters. More characters were planned as DLC, but unfortunately they couldn't see the light of day, and we have few characters that are Arc System Works on original characters, of course. But I just love the justice that they have given to these characters. I watched the original Persona 4 anime, and frankly speaking, I was just... I am spoiled by the story, of course, but, you know, when I see these characters on the screen, I'm just always amazed of, like, so much love, effort, and passion put into it. Like, this is one of the best examples of how we can see Teddy being beaten to a pulp, because his face is so big, you just cannot unsee the funny, goofy expressions he's making during the entire fight. And this is what makes 2D's fighting games so much interesting. Like, here's an example of Chie making her goofy face in the middle of a match. Or, you know, here's when you beat Yosuke and he just falls onto the ground as if he's beaten to a pulp. It's just so much beautiful. Now, this game is a 3D game at its core, and its stages are just so amazing. Like, this middle of the town stage reminds me so much of Sly Cooper or Scooby-Doo game from PlayStation 2 era. The Twisted Bridge stage is just so amazing, where the vehicles are just minding their own business. The school gymnasium stage, where the sunlight is penetrating through the windows, and there are silhouettes of students walking laughing in the background. The music room with the creepy paintings just blinking. It's just so Persona-like, but so twisted and so interesting. The classroom stage is definitely a chef's kiss with, like, again, the silhouettes of students, their daily lives, and this beautiful environment of a classroom. And finally, one of my most favorite stages in this game is the school entrance, or the school entrance, and it's just visually one of the most stunning stages in this game. No doubt about it.
I'm Ultimax. I will be explaining the new features of the game system. Let's start with the skill hold system. This incredible feature allows you to use skills without having to input difficult commands. You just press the A button and hold it down for a while. This is the skill hold gauge. As you hold the A button down, the gauge will slowly fill. Once it's full, now release the button. There you go. You pulled off a skill even though you didn't enter the command for it. The skill you use depends on how long you hold A. If you hold the button down longer, you'll execute more powerful skills. Players who aren't confident in inputting complex commands can use this feature to access more moves.
So, breaking down the gameplay, let's make it simple and digestible. So here's your character profile, and here's your persona profile underneath your health bar. These are your persona cards, and if your persona takes enough damage, he will disappear for a limited time. Then you also have the commentator, and these are your skill points. And finally, you have, if your character has a weapon or assist, then this is the bar representing how much ammo or health they have left. And finally, when your character health bar depletes to a certain point, the skills that can actually do more damage. Now, SP skills are kind of important, or they're very important, because they are kind of feel like they're your level 1 supers, and your level 2 supers once you're awakened.
Music licensing reimagined.
And when you're like in the final round and of your final battle, and your SP skills are like 100 or more, than is like a KO move where it just defeats your opponent. Even if your opponent has like a full health bar, this is like 100% damage. And it is something similar in the BlazBlue games. You have different effects that you can use to, or you can be affected with in a match that can give you advantage and disadvantages. So breaking down stuff like, for example, if you're affected with poison, if you try to move forward, your character will move backward, and vice versa. If you're affected with love, your character is going to give their SP point to your opponent. If you're like affected with shock, your character will be stunned, so pretty much being vulnerable to long-range combos and attacks. So there are these different effects that can really change the tide of the game or turn the tables. You gotta be very careful about that. But I think in general, the characters, at least the game, is really well balanced. They have different characters, with some having their weapons or some having some extra fields that can give them an edge over the other. But of course, you have your classic character types, grapplers, and your grapplers, your zone characters, charge characters, motion characters. And if you're somebody who's familiar with the archetype of 2D fighting games, then I think this game is very interesting. And once you get a good grip of it, I think the game is just not very difficult to play. Rather, it's you can easily master a few characters and get those very satisfying perfect victories, like in my case, here I am. So, but I had a very small learning window compared to other fighting games that I've played over the years that made me enjoy this game. And mild spoilers ahead, so skip like 30 to 40 seconds. So while the combat is the bread and butter, the story mode really isn't. So there are 4 story modes in this game, starting with the original Persona 4 Arena story mode, which is excruciating, boring, and uninteresting. It's just it's like a visual novel, and there will be like huge sections of text and characters chatting, and then you would finally get into a fight. And I'm so glad they have an auto mode where you can just let the computer fight for you if you just are dead bored at this point. But I mean, yeah, it tries to keep things interesting with few characters having making different choices that can have different outcomes in the final plot, which is interesting. But in general, I didn't enjoy this that much. I was like, oh my god, I'm bored. I am bored. Was my thought process with this. I was just not really happy. And yeah, by the way, this is me fighting. The footage I captured is not from auto mode, because I actually do really love how good the game is, but the story just isn't that interesting. And considering it takes place after Persona 4 events, of course it does a recap of it, and if you haven't played the game, you're going to get spoilers. Not like in-depth spoilers, but you're just gonna understand like, oh yeah, okay, so this is happening, this is what happened. And it also gives spoilers for Persona 3 as well, so yeah, be warned. But once you're done with the 4 arenas story mode, you then jump into the Ultimax story mode, which has these branchings and whatnot, and also has different outcomes for different character choices you can make. The main gist of it has been that Midnight Channel is back, which in Persona 4's lore is a channel that if you see after midnight kills people, and this time it's a tournament where people have to fight to death. So I mean, it's an interesting plot, but I'm happy the Ultimax story mode kind of shook things up, but at the same time I'm just not a huge fan of this approach. Then you have the Adachi story mode, who is an important character in the Persona 4 lore, and during the Ultimax story mode's finale and Adachi story mode finale, you have to fight this demon monster, which I'm so glad isn't the final boss in the arcade modes and whatnot, because beating him is just not that fun. It even took the computer a couple of tries. And once you beat the Ultimax story mode, you unlock the Persona 3 Ultimax story mode, which is basically the entire P4 Ultimax story mode told from Persona 3 character's perspective. I kid you not. I mean, at this point, I was just generally frustrated with what the hell is going on. Like, I don't want every story mode to be like NetherRealm story mode, but at the same time, I'm not a huge fan of this sort of an approach. I love the World Tour mode Street Fighter 6 did, and the King of Fighters 13 story mode is just chef's kiss. But yeah, you get rewarded with the beautifully animated cutscenes, or you see what your characters were doing after their respective games, or after the events of the P3, P4 stories, and I think it's really interesting when you see the characters meeting for the first time as well. There's just some interesting stuff if you're a Persona fan like me, but I don't know, I think it's age. I feel tired, I don't want to get myself invested. The only story that I genuinely loved, or, you know, I kind of cried, was Labrys' story mode. I was emotionally very invested into Labrys' story mode. It was beautiful, and yes, she's an original character from Arc System Works. After story modes, you have different battle modes. So starting off, you have the fun arcade mode, which is your classic arcade mode where you have to fight, you know, battle after battle, beat the enemies, and once you do that, you finally get to the final boss in the game, which is a classic arcade stuff, but I really enjoyed, because of course it has story elements into it, and just made me wonder, like, why couldn't they make the story mode like this? So yeah, it does have some interesting interactions of characters interacting with one another, and each character is, of course, if you're a fighting game player, you know, in arcade mode, each character is the main character. So yeah, that's how the story is told from those perspectives. And after each battle, you will be ranked based on your performance, and yeah, after you beat the final boss, unfortunately, like other fighting games, you don't get arcade endings, because the story mode gives that. The story mode wraps up each character's arc, like, oh yeah, this is what they were doing. You just get this one cutscene in arcade mode every time you beat it, but the advantage of arcade mode is that after beating the arcade mode, you can unlock character announcers, and you also get judged for your performance, like in the original Persona games. So, and if you're asking what a character announcer is, then I'll let you know, but then you have the score attack mode, and score attack mode is like fighting waves of enemies, and if you fight the boss versions of them, you're going to unlock the commentators. You then have the golden arena mode, which is like a dungeon-based sort of fighting where you upgrade your characters, you upgrade your skills, you level up your health bar and skill points and whatnot. So basically this is a way to turn your character into a boss level character, where your character can do more damage, get more skill points in less period of time, has much more health that depletes very slowly. So it's an engaging mode. And finally you have the versus mode, where you can fight one-on-one, or you can fight the computer or any other player. And in the arcade modes and score attack modes, you can unlock character announcers, and yeah, of course, the commentators. Announcers would be like your round 1 KOs perfects. That would be spoken by your favorite character. And commentator, the original one is Reese, but you can unlock Yu, Yosuke, Akihiko, these characters to encourage you in their own respective ways. This was actually one of the most greedy ways as well, because the original 7th generation version of this game, you had to buy the character commentators and announcers from PlayStation Store, because unlocking them is not easy. Like, yes, you can play through the arcade mode and it's convenient, but for commentators, you have to beat score attack mode in the hardest difficulty, where you have to beat each character in their fully, what would you say, like a fully boss level version of them, which is just excruciating and difficult. So back in the day, they were like, yeah, well, you can either waste your time or pay us money and get that. In the new updated version, the character announcers and commentators are already in the game, so I don't think there's much need for that. But yeah, times, PTSD, I would say. And then you have the training modes, which of course you have the tutorial on how to play the game. You have free practice, where you can learn your combos, you can learn different moves. And again, like I said, this game is not very difficult. It's very simple. You have your light attacks, which are your punches and kicks, and you have heavy attacks, where your persona attacks. So, and you just have to do some combinations and whatnot. It's not that difficult. And of course, you have the challenge mode, where you have to beat challenges and prove yourself. And finally, we have the gallery mode, which has character illustrations. It has arcade movies. It has all the stuff that is unlocked. Sorry, story movies. My bad.
She who resides over power, and the epitome of her strength. This is the highest form of respect for me.
Margaret. With perfect.
In general, I think Persona 4 Arena games are very interesting. They're very beautiful, and they're very, very solid fighting games at their core. The story modes can be a little annoying, but I just love how good the mechanics is. If you're a KOF player, Street Fighter player, or an anime fighter player, you're definitely going to enjoy this a lot. And even if you're somebody who plays 3D fighting games like Tekken or Virtua Fighter, the combos are not that difficult, and the moves and executions are easy. So it's very entertaining and really great. And that's it for me. I at this point, I just want this game to be I just want this review to be out. I had been working on this for a very long period of time, but my job and my schedule has been just so tight. YouTube is much more of a passion project, so not really here to sit down and invest all of my time into it. My job routine has been just so hectic with migraines recently, and I've been having a hard time keeping up with work and life and studies. So yeah, this is not fun, but at the same time, it's just really entertaining to, or at least satisfying to play something that you love so much and talk about it. So thank you, everybody who made it this far into the video. I really appreciate, all the love you guys have given me for my previous reviews regarding Strider and Asura's Wrath. And of course, more will be coming, but I really appreciate your patience. And you know what? I pray that may God help you go through tough times that are in your life right now, or the ones that will come. Until next time, Radio J37 signing out.